All right, all right. Well, I'd like to take a moment. We're going to go ahead and get things kicked off here, and I want to take a moment to welcome everyone again to another installment of Kentico Market Insights. Those of you who are returning, welcome back. If this is the first time you're participating in Market Insights, we're certainly happy to have you and look forward to seeing you in future presentations or future webinars also. Just to kind of lay the groundwork or lay some of the foundation, Market Insights is a webinar series that is intended to strictly be educational and informational. It's not, we're not trying to sell or pitch anything. It's basically to help provide some information that in a very dynamically changing market space for marketers and digital strategists that want to stay on top of some of the latest trends and some of the things that are going to be important in their overall success. And as we move forward, today's webinar titled Intelligent Insights and Agile Customer Journeys. That's our topic for today, and our host presenter is a gentleman who I've known for a number of years here, Christian Twist, who is the COO for Korcomptenz. And we'll get back to more on him and Korcomptenz in a couple of moments. But first, I'd also like to highlight some upcoming events that may be coming to a city near you as well. Kentico Connection, obviously tied to Kentico very closely, is an annual event that we run in 3 cities worldwide. And it brings our clients and partner community together to share knowledge, experience, ideas, and hopefully to invoke inspiration. And the intended market is both for marketers as well as developers. And it is an awesome experience that again, will educate you on the future direction of digital engagement and omni-channel strategies. So tickets are still available through Eventbrite for the upcoming 2 conferences, both in Chicago and Prague. So coming out of this, if that's something that you're inclined to look into further, we look forward to seeing you there too. So now I'd like to give a little bit of an intro on our presenter for today. And again, I mentioned Christian Twist is the COO for Korcomptenz. And to give you some insight on Korcomptenz, founded in 2003 by senior technology executives with deep experience in enterprise service market. They're headquartered in Jersey, or New Jersey, sorry, and my colloquialisms. They're headquartered in New Jersey, and the founder's goal was essentially to provide a high-level service, both high-level service value that meets and scales to the needs of technology transformation and staffing. And Korcomptenz is a Kentico Gold Solution Partner, which is really an indication on the level of experience and knowledge that they have around our platform. So it's the highest classification of partnership that Kentico recognized. And they've also frequently been recognized for the quality of their work with various industry awards and also Kentico recognitions, like Site of the Year, Site of the Month distinctions. They currently serve over 200 customers, meeting the needs of literally millions of website visitors and thousands of desktops and mobile users. So they're coming at this presentation with a broad breadth of experience, and they're led by their mission statement: deploy innovative and best-in-class technology solutions that help clients accelerate their business results by enabling them to deliver quality services to their key stakeholders. So they drive clients to engage, enable, and accelerate. And now that I've given you a little bit about Korcomptenz, let me talk a little bit about the man who's going to be speaking to us for the next 45 minutes or so. Christian combines over 2 decades of experience in enterprise marketing technology with a diverse background, including strategy, business development, and creative to support the technology transformation needs of international organizations. He's worked in multiple market sectors such as healthcare, financial services, retail, publishing, supporting some of the most recognizable brands in the world. And on a side note, in his free time, he's also an award-winning independent filmmaker, author of multiple novels, and a semi-professional race car driver. So again, with that brief introduction, I'd like to again welcome to the show Christian Twist, who's going to provide us a little bit of an understanding or a little bit of insight into intelligent insights and agile customer journeys. So welcome to the show, Christian.
Well, thank you, Eric, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate everyone's time on a Wednesday afternoon. We're going to start off with a very simple formula. The combination of properly applied business intelligence and intelligently implemented customer journeys results in faster ROI. The variables underlying this formula are very complex and they're going to vary quite a bit from organization to organization, but the faster ROI will ultimately be achieved through a combination of reducing waste and speeding time to market, ultimately increasing conversions and lowering total cost of ownership. Our goal today is to show you how to take advantage of these trends and highlight how systems like Kentico can provide the functionality you need to be successful. One of the reasons you chose to attend this webinar is probably because you implicitly understand that customer experience remains king. The era of the customer experience began 20 years ago when Harvard Business Review published Welcome to the Experience Economy. They proposed that as price and differentiation increase, organizations move down a path from providing basic commodities to ultimately staging experiences. In one sense, this wasn't really anything new. We've always known that consumers have paid a premium for a high-end brand, from Ritz-Carlton to Mercedes-Benz, and those brands have always prided themselves on delivering a superior experience. What was new, however, was how this trend was going to affect nearly every sector of the economy, from buying a computer to a cup of coffee. The better the experience, the more consumers are willing to expend, according to Harvard, up to 2.4 times as much. Over the past couple of decades, the need to improve the experience has helped give rise to two related yet distinct technology trends. Business intelligence provides the data and the insights. Marketing automation drives the customer experience by delivering highly personalized and very targeted journeys. Together, these two technologies ultimately empower marketers to enhance every interaction with the customer. This process works because every interaction online generates data, allowing your marketing automation platform to personalize the experience. If this data is then stored in a business intelligence suite, it can be subject to further analysis and modeling. The insights generated from the BI suite can then be used to improve your marketing campaigns. This will enhance both your performance and the quality of the data that you're capturing. Note that this is not something that happens once. It's a continuous and what we like to consider virtuous feedback loop that is essential to continually improving the customer experience over time. Implementing this ongoing flow of data is going to be critical to your success. With all this talk of data, it's probably a good time to warn you that there will be times during this presentation when you might wonder if our topic is marketing or information services. The truth is that these days it can be very difficult to separate the two. According to a recent report from Forrester Research, technology now consumes a growing 30% of a marketer's budget, and marketers are increasingly facing the sort of challenges that used to be reserved for the technology team, like getting systems to talk to one another smoothly and managing large amounts of data. A bit later in the presentation, we're going to discuss how technology teams adopted Agile methodologies to overcome challenges like this, but first we wanted to give you a brief primer on business intelligence. We find that business intelligence is one of those topics that's frequently tossed around in acronym form, BI, with very little thought to what it actually includes or how it actually works. The assumption in a lot of organizations seems to be that you can hire a data scientist, or in a large company, a team of data scientists, and all will be well. This is partially because BI is very complex. The market is big, the tools are vast and varied. You know, when a company like Gartner uses the phrase, quote unquote, umbrella term, you're navigating into pretty deep waters. Before we dive in, it's helpful to focus on the purpose of all of this. Ultimately, we want better decisions for better outcomes. The father of the computer, Charles Babbage, once said that errors using inadequate data are much less than those using no data at all. In this case, you'll find that the more accurate and the deeper the data you have, the better decisions you can make about your marketing and operations. This assumes, though, that the data is both accessible and meaningful. Fortunately, one of the key goals of business intelligence is making this data both accessible and meaningful. You can break this down into three parts or three layers of the application. The foundation is a warehouse that stores the raw data. This is where the data from all of your marketing, operations, e-commerce, etc. should flow. If you don't have this warehouse of data, you ultimately can't ship it out for analysis. The analytics platform is what is going to receive these shipments. This is where the data scientists work. They pull out sets of data, they analyze them for reports or model them for forecasts. We'll talk about both in a little bit. Finally, there's a visualization layer that sits on top of this that presents the data in a way that makes sense to someone who isn't a data scientist. In short, you're going to need all three of these business intelligence applications, or your results are going to be very limited. Fortunately, there are dozens of providers in this space. There are all-in-one packages that combine these tiers into a single offering. We've listed a few leaders for you here. As you probably know, Tableau is practically a household name at this point, but Microsoft has made significant strides in recent years. They just released a new machine learning model that works with R as part of their analytics platform. You might use these. You can look at other options depending on your budget and your unique needs. Either way, the good news is that there are flexible deployment and payment options, including cloud services. For example, the machine learning tool I mentioned from Microsoft even has a free version. You don't need to break the capital investment bank to get started and implement your first initiatives. Choosing the right tools for your organization and technology stack is going to be critical to moving from data to insights. In this regard, there are two types of insights you're likely to gain. The first is in-depth reporting on your previous performance. Financial reports, marketing reports, customer engagement reports, you name it, all nicely visualized for improved understanding and easy consumption. The second is models. Models look at your past performance to predict future results, like what every new customer will be worth, where customers are likely to go as they navigate your website, and what your revenue looks like with a different marketing mix. In other words, if you strip away some of the jargon, models are like formulas. They crunch your data and they output what comes next. The reports, on the other hand, are well-organized sets of your existing data. There are a number of models available. Here are three examples that we're going to return to later in the presentation. Customer lifetime value, which is actually one of the equations on the previous slide, predicts the revenue and gross margin per customer by segment. Clickstream analysis creates a map of your online channels and gives you the statistical tools to know where new customers are most likely to move next. Market mix and uplift models classify customers based on how much they can be influenced by your marketing, and they help you identify new potential audiences. All of them should ultimately be fed into expense and forecasting so you can get a better handle on your future revenue and profit. Of course, equations and spreadsheets aren't very meaningful for most users. This is where visualizations are incredibly important, and most BI applications contain plenty of them for your use, from basic bar charts and graphs to combinations of them and even interactive maps. The majority of users in your organization are likely to access BI only through these visualizations. They're never going to see the underlying data or the analysis level. Choosing the optimal display for the report or model in question is incredibly important to making sure your insights are properly understood. You're probably asking yourself what options are right for your organization. If there are tools and partners that can fit almost any budget, how do you know what is the right fit for you? It ultimately comes down to understanding your own unique needs. You want to answer questions like how much data do you have, how many users, and how fast your data is growing. You should also consider the complexity of the implementation you will need now and in the future. How many sources of data do you have? What types of data do you want to store? The results you need to achieve over the short and long term are going to be important as well. For example, you might start out with a very small data set like transaction history, where a basic BI tool can handle the job. But what else do you plan to add in the future? Of course, you're not likely to forget about the costs. Define a budget and get started with a basic implementation and then upgrade over time. Now we're going to pause for a moment as it's time for our first poll. Does your organization currently leverage BI tools? We'll give folks a moment to vote on this. Right now, it looks like the yays have it. We're at about 85% yes, 15% no. Give everyone a couple more minutes to vote. We've got 62% of you participating. We're up to 67. We'll close the poll out in about 10 seconds. Just give everyone a few more minutes. At 67% voted, we are at 86% yes, 14% no. All right, Eric, I think we can go ahead and close that poll. We've got 2/3 participation. Final results were 86% yes, 14% no. Now that we're familiar with some of the basics of BI, it's time to circle back to how technology teams address the demands of difficult projects with long timelines. Their secret was a new Agile methodology popularized in the early 2000s. We're going to take a brief look at its history and how it applies to modern marketing. Agile didn't come about by accident. Like many improvements in human life, it was born from a crisis, namely that projects were running longer, in some cases far, far longer than their usefulness. By the time something was actually finished, the rules of the game had changed, and the result was either useless or at times even incompatible with the current technology. This led Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber to invent Scrum in the mid-90s. They used a term from rugby to describe a coordinated team of players in action. The Agile movement was dormant for a few years and then really took off in Utah in 2001, resulting in the statement of 12 key Agile principles. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to get into each one of them here, but I highly recommend looking them up. I think you'll find that just about all of them are very relevant to business today, regardless of what team you're on or what your role is in the organization. In application development, the traditional approach before Agile was known as waterfall. Projects move through prescribed steps from start to finish like a river slowly moving to the sea. I'm not aware of an equivalent term to describe the traditional approach to marketing. I've just been doing it long enough to realize that the introduction of marketing technology has created two things. We call it a laudable goal and a burning question. There's nothing wrong with the goal itself. Everyone should be trying to map their customer journeys, personalize their marketing, and report on their performance. The underlying problem is that the goal is big, expensive, and doesn't generate any ROI unless all of the pieces are in place. That can take years, unfortunately, sometimes longer than their usefulness. We like to refer to this new customer journey mapping challenge as the spaghetti incident. In a very real sense, we feel it is modern marketing's equivalent of the application development crisis. The interactions most organizations have with their customers, especially organizations with a variety of different service lines and customer profiles or personas, are incredibly complex. Trying to map it all out in one shot looks like spaghetti thrown on a wall. The number of pathways and data generated is greater than the time and budget required to generate the ROI that you need. This has led us to establish 3 primary agile marketing principles. These principles aren't meant to replace the best practices or the experience and expertise required to succeed in your unique market. Instead, they're designed to change the way you think and plan and execute your marketing campaigns. While all of the principles are important, if you only choose one to adopt in your organization, definitely make it iterate to innovate. Agile development methodologies such as Scrum all use what is known as the time box model. Instead of deciding what you want to do and then building a plan that could take 6 months, a year, 2 years, or more, identify the time in advance and then the tasks that fit into that time horizon. Leave anything that doesn't fit for the next cycle and just keep moving forward with new cycles. We found that if you only have so much time to work with, you're going to be forced to think differently. Your objectives will have to be discrete, and you'll ultimately be deploying regular iterations. Reverse thinking is a brainstorming technique used in fields as varied as engineering and creative writing. The usual approach is to reimagine the question in its opposite form. From an agile perspective, we believe this means focusing on your outcomes first. Asking questions like, what does my program achieve, instead of everything it might possibly include? What data do you have that is usable at this point in time, and what can you collect as part of the program? Instead of evaluating the systems from front to back, focus exclusively on the functionality necessary to support the objective. The objective itself should also be refined, specific, and discrete, just one question at a time. In the software industry, they refer to this as a minimally viable product, an MVP. For example, the original iPhone didn't let you purchase songs, much less integrate with the Apple Watch. The functionality was built up over time using an upgrade with incremental improvements. For our purposes today, this means instead of the original laudable goal, ask yourself something like, what do I need to acquire new high-value customers? Don't worry, we're not going to tell you to stop there. Whether you refer to them as epic sprints or just ongoing enhancements, you need to continuously improve. Marketing has become an arms race, similar to the technology market. This approach has been adopted by all of the major tech companies. Modern apps are updated monthly with major improvements at least annually. After you launch one program or solve a particular challenge, you need to ask yourself what comes next. Do you want to further integrate the data, or do you want to launch a new campaign in a new channel? The important thing to note is that you have the flexibility to move in any direction, and that each move that you take will complete another important step towards the original laudable goal. Even better, if your needs and systems change while these iterations are unfolding, you can easily adapt and revise your plan, ensuring that the majority of your business initiatives will not outlive their usefulness. Okay, it's time for the next poll. Does your organization currently use any agile methodologies? The poll is being distributed now. We'll give people about a minute to vote. Got an interesting mix coming in here. Half of you have voted. 25% doing agile, 8% technology, 7% agile marketing, 36% agile both, 21% none of the above. Up to 75% participation. Give it a little bit longer. Usually like to give everyone about a minute to complete these polls. 75% is a little better than the 67% we had the first time around. So it's good to see that everyone is engaged. Hope you're enjoying the presentation so far. Up to 80% voted. Excellent. Okay, Eric, I think we can go ahead and close the poll. We're at 31% doing Agile technology projects, 6% doing Agile marketing, 31% doing both, and 31% doing none of the above. Going to go ahead and move on to the next slide in the presentation. Connecting BI and customer journeys. Now that we have both an understanding of BI and the Agile methodology, we can connect them with customer journeys and then walk through how they are supported by the great features available in Kentico. As we learned, the Agile methodology requires a clear objective. We believe most organizations will want to focus on the customer, hoping to answer a few critical questions to drive more consistent and predictable growth with their first forays into BI and predictive modeling. Questions like, what is a customer worth? Which customers are most valuable? Can we predict revenue per customer? How do we target them, make them more loyal? We're going to walk through 3 critical BI reports and the resulting enhancements you can make to your marketing and customer experience. The first step is calculating the CLTV. It shouldn't be surprising that customer lifetime value is the foundation of all of these initiatives. The goal of a CLTV model is to identify revenue and profit for each new customer in a specific segment or channel. First, this analysis looks at 3 important data points: how recently customers have purchased, how frequently they purchase, and the value of these purchases. This data is then used to group customers into segments. Then the algorithm that we displayed on the screen earlier is used to calculate the CLTV for each segment. This has 4 immediate impacts on your organization. First, you should shift your marketing spend and the channels that you're using to target the highest value customers more closely. The shift should be measurable enough. We usually recommend a figure of around 20%, that it allows you to adjust the accuracy of the model while you keep improving your data. That's also an important thing to consider. On the first round of these calculations, the data and the output is not likely to be 100% accurate. Using that virtual feedback loop that we mentioned earlier, you want to improve your data over time. So making these shifts measurable will enable you to do that. You can also improve your online presence for these customers. For example, adding a conversion form with an automated follow-up to see if a few targeted emails in a series can increase that conversion rate. Likewise, experiment with a simple retention campaign for existing customers that haven't purchased from you in a while. You should also add the CLTV to your marketing reports and projections to compare changes and ultimately increase the accuracy over time. The next step is to analyze how your customers are interacting with your website and landing pages to determine the effectiveness of your current content and flow, and to develop a predictive model for where customers are likely to go next as they move through your online properties. This is referred to as a clickstream analysis. Clickstream analysis uses a technique called a Markov chain. A Markov chain is a visual representation of a sequence of possible events in which the probability of each event depends only on the state attained in the previous event. These chains can be used to model anything that conforms to those criteria, even what you plan to do on a rainy or a sunny day, as you can see in the diagram on the right. You can also represent this clickstream data as a heat map that shows the high probability and low probability conversions. There are clustering and bar chart versions that help you visualize the performance of different groups and similar segments. These tools are ultimately designed to help you find out what's hot and what's not, so you can align your website presence with your marketing goals. I do need to warn you that the outcome of this clickstream analysis is going to be very complex. It could even be overwhelming. Ultimately, you're looking at a detailed map of how customers interact with your brand online. This map includes the ability to predict future interactions as you add more traffic. Unlike CLTV, customer lifetime value, There aren't likely to be many obvious conclusions, making the real question what to do with so much data. We recommend following a spin of the law of thirds, pick 3 high and low performers, adjust accordingly, and then rerun the data to measure the improvements. The third initiative we recommend is designed to measure a customer's propensity to be persuaded by your marketing efforts. This type of uplift modeling segments customers into 4 groups. The lost causes, these are those that are unlikely to purchase from you again, regardless of what you offer. The sure things, those that are likely to purchase again under any circumstances, and the 2 more sensitive types. Do not disturbs will ultimately purchase on their own time and are best left marketing too sparingly. And the persuadables, this is that critical audience that is really ready for a nudge and very receptive to your marketing. After you analyze your current data, the goal is to apply a machine learning model. To get a little technical, 2 models that do this are called K-nearest neighborhood and random forest. You can Google them and find out how they work, and then ultimately predict the behavior of future customers, which will allow you to target high potential segments for acquisition. Things are going to start getting very interesting after you've completed just these 3 steps. You're going to have the tools to target and retain high value customers, a model for how they will behave, and the learnings to craft new click streams in the future. If you combine that with predicting what customers and prospects you're most likely to influence, you'll have developed a framework across the key outreach aspects of your organization. Using the Agile model, you'll also have demonstrated value each step along the way, making improvements that have real results while you build out your future initiatives. We mentioned earlier that there's a good chance you probably have some of these systems in place that can support Agile customer journey marketing. If you're on Kentico now or considering transitioning to Kentico as your CMS, you're in really good hands because the online marketing and marketing automation features are exactly what you need to start generating results immediately with or without a full BI implementation. Before you begin to build out your customer journeys, you probably want some assurance that these techniques produce real results. What you see on screen is an actual snapshot of a 90-day campaign using the Agile methodology and approach we've described here. The top line conversion rate was over 25%, more than 5 times the conversion rate without an accompanying journey. The marketing automation techniques we used also allowed the organization to understand more about their target audiences for improved personalized follow-up. This is the kind of marketing horsepower that marketing automation ultimately provides. As you get started, there are a few features that you need to be sure to include. Obviously, digital marketing to drive traffic is important, but that topic is well covered elsewhere, and we wanted to focus on Kentico in this session. In our experience, success on the website starts with some form of interactive content like a quiz or a survey. Studies indicate that interactive content has a 50% higher conversion rate than flat content. Think of those celebrity lookalike quizzes all of your friends are always taking on Facebook. It's equally important to offer the users something of value. Give them a reason to interact, like access to exclusive content, then personalize the follow-up and provide them with incentives to return. Even if a user does not immediately become a customer, their email address is an asset for future marketing. The more personalized and targeted your outreach, the better. The good news for you is that Kentico fully supports all the functionality we just discussed, with both advanced personalization and a very high level of scalability and customization options as you start to build out more complex campaigns. Today, we're going to take a closer look at adding interactive content to a site, assigning a user to an automated campaign, and tracking activity through the contact manager. But there are also specific campaign reporting and other personalization features available that will help as you build out your full presence. First, let's take a look at the front end. For this presentation, we've developed a sample quiz using a demo Kentico installation. We would have preferred to show it to you live, but figured it would be safer to use screen captures in the event of a network issue and to limit your humble narrator jumping through a bunch of different screens. Please feel free to contact me to walk you through it for real if you would like. In the meantime, we have a sample landing page with our 3-question marketing insights quiz on the left and a snapshot of the person on the right. This is what the user will see when they interact for the first time. The rest is behind the scenes. Also note the use of a poll on the right. This can be used to personalize the on-site experience. Kentico published an excellent how-to on that earlier this year. I highly recommend checking it out. The front end drives the assignment and personalization on the back end. The quiz is designed to learn a little more about the needs of our target audiences and then use that information to personalize the experience and the follow-up campaigns. In this example, suitable for a presentation as part of the Marketing Insights series, we're assigning users to a marketing track based on how they use Kentico. Are they developers, marketers, or content managers? We're also learning their skill level to personalize both the results page and the email campaign. The third question about marketing insights is only peripherally related to keep the number of possible permutations limited, but in a real world instance, a peripheral question like this gives you the ability to showcase something that might appeal to all audiences with or without having developed a separate campaign for each one. On the back end, the configuration of these items is very straightforward. First, we create a standard Kentico form using the drag and drop form builder, and then embed it using a custom web part that contains the transformations to personalize the results on the thank you page. The web part can then be embedded anywhere on the site and of course modified for your future campaigns. This basic setup will allow you to leverage the built-in functionality of standard Kentico forms for track assignments and other personalizations without having to write any custom code. The only thing slightly custom is the results display. We believe this is worth the investment because you can drive users on the site to relevant content while they are there, and it also adds that all-important personal touch. Underlying the page configuration, the marketing automation setup is also out-of-the-box Kentico. Each audience is given its own unique track with standard assignment conditions based on the user's form submission. We've also embedded another type of assignment in the track itself. In this case, it's personalization based on the user's skill level. This setup allows you to build out branches for each skill level within a single campaign. While some organizations might prefer to create multiple campaigns for this kind of branching, we feel a setup like this is flexible and efficient. You can personalize the first 2 emails based on skill level and then do a standard series for the rest. You can also add an else condition if the details on the form change. The result tracking is also fully integrated with Kentico and requires no customization. If your contact manager is configured correctly, all of the leads that complete the form will flow in here, and you can create groups to easily view who is assigned to what audience. You also have the ability to track all the activities by user from their profile, all without any custom coding or extra setup. Kentico makes it that easy for you. One slightly custom display item, and the rest is entirely out of the box. All in, this entire demo was put together by myself and a single developer in just a few hours. While a real-life implementation is likely to be more complex, you're still going to follow these basic steps for the overall project on the left and within Kentico on the right. There are 2 things we'd like you to keep in mind. First, stay as close to your target audience as possible. The quiz and content should not be designed to attract every type of customer you have. Second, don't overcomplicate the permutations. The end user doesn't know the inner workings of the quiz. As long as the results are relevant enough to be useful, the user will find it valuable and it will drive the interactions you need to generate conversions. Time for our third poll. The poll is open, being distributed now. Have you used Kentico EMS features in this fashion? We've got 32%, 37% voted, 42%, only 11% yes, 89% no. Up to 18% yes, 82% no, with 58% participation. Let's see if we can get that up to the 85% we had last time and get an accurate number. For those of you who haven't used Kentico EMS, hope it's been helpful for you. We're up to 23 yes, 77 no. 68% voted. So a tad higher than the first poll, a little bit lower than the second poll. Let's see if we can get a few more votes in before we close it out. Okay, we'll close it out with 74% voted, 21% yes, 79% no. So I hope that walkthrough was helpful for the no's and for the yeses. Hopefully you learned a little something as well. We are winding down the presentation now. We want to thank you again for joining us for this edition of Kentico Marketing Insights. We only have a couple of slides to go before the question and answer session. There are two things that we want to tell you in conclusion. The first is that you can and hopefully will, after you've been inspired by this session, do it. The results I shared earlier were for an organization that had never done any automated marketing in the past. Never. They were not able to get the systems in place. They were not able to get a strategy and a content model in place either. And now they're continuing to invest and innovate. The systems are out there and can fit within your budget. You have the talent in-house or partners that you can turn to for help. And even if your first attempts don't generate a 25% conversion rate, you will continue to improve now that you have a lot more data about user activity and their interactions. A second item we want to leave you with is actually a few things. A discrete objective and an agile time-boxed approach requires a high level of specificity. The journeys for your full business offerings can be built up over time, but start with something short, sweet, and achievable in mind. It's also important to be unique. I'm sure all of your industries are highly competitive, and you need to establish your own value proposition. Engagement is another factor. SEM is great, but social targeting is also effective, and offline shouldn't be underestimated either. Don't be afraid to be daring and experiment. If you're following the Agile model, deploying your programs in short sprints with integrated business intelligence, you can afford to have campaigns that don't perform as well as others. Sometimes understanding why a program didn't meet your goals can be as important in the long term as a success story. It can help you avoid similar mistakes and provide the learnings to improve all of your other campaigns. I know we've covered a lot of ground today across over 50 slides, but I hope each of you has learned at least one thing you can take back to the office that will have an immediate impact. After all, that's the most important thing. We can talk about the considerable benefits, the challenges, how a new approach can help break through barriers. We can even outline a specific framework and a plan that should work for a variety of different organizations. But the real meaning is going to come from what you do with this information and how you impact your customers. We really hope this session has helped in that regard. Thank you again. We appreciate your joining. It is time for Q&A. Please use the question and answer box on the right if there's anything specific you'd like me to address. We can also discuss anything on your mind offline. Eric is going to moderate the questions, so please feel free to use that box on the right, and I will do my best to answer any questions on the spot.
That was great, Christian. Thank you. That was a fantastic presentation. I learned quite a bit during it as well. So I appreciate the time and going through it. I'm going to go through. There's a number of questions that have come in. I'll just kind of go through them in random here. All right, first question. What kind of impact on ROI do these strategies have from your experience?
Well, I think with ROI, you really divide it into two buckets. You have your return on marketing investment and your overall return on investment. And your actual return on either of these is really going to depend upon how mature you are as an organization. But for example, you can certainly look to increase your conversion rate by around 20%. And by increasing your conversion rate by 20%, that should have a net impact on your overall profit in the 10 to 15% range, I would say, is a minimum. So I would target somewhere in the 10 to 30% range as an impact on your return on investment. But one thing that's important to keep in mind, the return on investment also comes from reductions in costs. So now that you've got automated marketing out there, it should drive your cost per conversion down. So you'll be working both sides of the equation, increasing revenue and reducing costs.
Nice, nice. Hopefully that, thank you. Hopefully that answered the question. Here's another one. Do you use the quiz as a pop-up or more passive waiting for them to click on it to take it?
I think it can be used in both ways, depending upon where it is in your site. I like the idea of creating that custom web part, as we indicated, because it can be used in a pop-up and put right in front of people, or it can be used in a more passive approach. Some of the decision that you're going to make for your organization is going to be based on how you're marketing it. So for example, if you're doing Facebook or SEM advertising, you might be advertising the quiz directly. And for that channel, you'll make the quiz an integral part of your landing page. If, however, it is for average regular browsers on the site, you might do something like CNN.com has been doing now, whereas if you remain on the site for a certain period of time, the ad comes up in a pop-up window. If you do it as a web part that can be embedded anywhere on the site, you have the flexibility. And then if you want to get really clever, Kentico's A/B conversion testing will allow you to determine which is optimal. One other point to keep in mind there, Eric, is I think if the quiz is of value to your customers, then they will seek it out.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. All right, this question comes from earlier in the presentation. You talked about core components of BI, data visualization, and analytics platforms, as well as data warehouse. How much should somebody or an organization budget for BI software and services?
Well, that's a great question. Obviously, there are BI implementations that run easily into the 6 or 7 figures. Then there's using the Agile approach that we've described. The good news is a lot of these tools in particular are not very expensive. So for example, if you're on the Microsoft platform and you are using Office 365, you can set up an Azure installation that is likely to run $750 to $1,500 a month, depending upon the amount of data that you want to store. Then by virtue of doing that, you'll have access to Power BI, which I believe is only $10 per month per user. And you'll have access to that machine learning studio that I mentioned for free. So basically, somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 a month should be able to get you the data warehouse, the analytics tool, and the visualization layer.
Wow.
The key question, and it can be less expensive too, depends upon, again, how much data, how many transactions you're running. Then the key question is, what kind of company is going to provide these services? You're going to do them in-house or you have internal resources. In that regard, you've got 3 professional services tasks, really. One is implementing the data warehouse. That is largely a moving data around the process that's done on a time and materials basis based on the number of data sources that you have and the complexity. Depending upon the data source, you're probably looking at about 20 to 40 hours of effort to integrate each data source. So $50 to $150 an hour, depending upon the partner that you took, 20 to 40 hours worth of effort. Then you have the analytics portion of it, which is going to vary substantially. Once the data is in the warehouse, you can start generating basic reports. The reports themselves are probably in the 20 to 40 hour of effort range per report. And then the BI and the visualizations, that will be accessible at any time. So all in, you're likely looking at $10 to $15 to $20,000 of implementation costs, and then $1,000 to $2,000 a month of ongoing costs for a moderately sophisticated implementation. You could, of course, do it in stages, save some money up front, and then invest in the future, depending upon the number of ports you're doing.
Yeah, well, no, that's actually really not as bad as I was thinking. That's for the value that it provides. That's pretty short money. Okay, so here's an interesting question. It's something that I think a lot of marketers wrestle with, but the question is, how frequently should I be reporting on my campaigns and making adjustments? How long do I wait before I determine whether or not it's working or not?
That is, of course, one of the million-dollar questions. What I prefer to do is reporting on a monthly basis. You need time for the data to normalize a little bit, and then adjustments on a 3-month quarterly basis.
Okay.
Of course, if you're agile, there's going to be exceptions to every rule. If something is greatly underperforming or broken, don't waste the time to get in there to fix it. But on the campaigns that we've run, these things, I don't know if anyone's a baseball fan out there, but when someone bats .333 for the season, they're not getting 1 hit a day. They are going a week where they get 15, 20 hits, and then they're going a week when they're in a slump. Your campaigns are going to be the same way. And you need to make sure you have a data set that's large enough to make sure that you're separating the noise from the actual signal.
Excellent. Thank you. And I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more questions. Let me see here. So during the presentation, you highlighted Kentico EMS as one of the marketing automation tools in your example. What if we're not using Kentico? What if I'm using external marketing automation tools that aren't Kentico?
Sure. Well, first, I think you probably should be using Kentico. I don't want to make a plug for it just because I like the platform a lot, and Kentico has invited me for this webinar. But doing it in Kentico can be very easy because it's all integrated. That being said, for example, we just launched a campaign with one of our customers that uses Kentico on the front end and Marketo on the back end. The marketing automation platform, be it Marketo, Oracle, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, IBM Marketing Cloud, should have an API that will enable you to collect the data in Kentico and then assign it to the appropriate track in the marketing automation platform. So in this regard, what you would go ahead and do is create the web content in Kentico, create the marketing automation tracks in your platform, and then when a form is submitted in Kentico, it triggers something that calls that API and inserts that in the second platform. Okay. That's been successful. We've done it across Mautic, Marketo, Oracle, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and IBM Marketing Cloud.
Excellent. Hopefully, I don't know if whoever submitted that question, if you have some follow-ups on that, feel free to send them in as well. Looking at the questions, we had a couple of the same questions. Actually, I don't know that we have any additional questions. I'll hold out as well. If something comes in as I'm wrapping up our session, I'll go ahead and speak to it. But if there aren't any more questions, Christian, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on with us and joining us to provide us some education on these certainly business critical elements of marketing. And for those who did attend or did join us today, we have recorded the session. We will make it available online, probably through our YouTube channel, but we'll send links to those attending where to access that. And if you have any additional questions or information that you'd like to get from Christian, I don't know if you want to provide some contact information of how to reach you.
Yes. So Eric, I think when you send out the link, you can embed my contact information there. I will also be following up personally with everyone as well to make sure they enjoyed the session and see if they have any questions.
Fantastic. Christian, thank you again. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.